Well, hello there, everyone, and welcome back to Suzerain Kingdom of Rizia, where we need to fix our energy situation, don't we? How are we doing so far? Uh, Hydroelectric dam under construction, sanctuary under construction, coal mine under construction. Coastal batteries fired. Okay. Cell laboratory fire. Okay, that's fine. As long as it's not firing at anyone in specific. Emergency MITZ board meeting. Ah, excellent. What could possibly go wrong? Bilateral agreement discussions with Velen. Oh, this is gonna be lovely, isn't it? Victor Smolak, president of Velen, had finally agreed to meet with me several months of silence. Just ahead of my meeting with him, I convened with my council for a briefing. Thank you all for joining us here. He looked around the table: Vina, Lorento, Lucita, Elena, and Saul. Lorento, as you have the latest information from Velen's foreign ministry, would you like to begin? What can His Majesty expect today? Lorento stood up. He paced back and forth energetically as he spoke. We are in uncharted territories, Your Grace. President Smolak's invocation of the threat mitigation protocol has been challenged, but the AN failed to meet a consensus. Ah, fuck. Essentially, he is in a position to hold Zille hostage until his demands are met. And indeed, the new handover plan his ministers are now proposing has a 3-year timeline attached to it. Fuck's sake. Ah, 3 years, that can't be standard procedure, can it? As I said, this is an unprecedented situation. I believe the AN is satisfied that President Smolak has set a new deadline at all. And what makes us think that this one will be met when the last one was not? Anger danced in Lucita's eyes. She gestured at the rest of the table. This is our territory. Why are we not setting the agenda? I'm surprised the international community is not challenging an oppressive man like President Smolak. The others looked at her in mild surprise. What of the people living in Zille? Has anyone asked them how they feel about an extra 3 years of Vezek rule? My treasurer smiled wistfully. We may still have the opportunity to set the agenda. Any agreement Velen proposes is bound to have an economic aspect. And considering the dire straits Velen is in, was in with the rest of the world, President Smolak might be about to offer us the deal of our lives. Correct as usual, dear. Lorento opened his notebook. I will remind you that Velen is under partial sanctions by most of the West. The only commodity they have been trading freely is oil. The presence of the Ariana Taurus Association in Zille has helped sway public sentiment to our side. Our investigators are cooperating with Velen intelligence, which will make it more difficult for President Smolak to claim we are uninterested in the region's security. Even so, we should handle this meeting with delicacy. Any aggression on our part can be used against us. Ah. Yeah, delicacy is one thing. Submission is another. We must be careful what we promise. Very true, Your Majesty. At some point it might become necessary to call Velen's bluff. I know this much, Your Grace. Unless concessions are made, it will take years, if not decades, to take Zille back. Any questions just for Your Majesty? Uh, Duchess Zaro, do you have any follow-up information about the Zille incident? Lucida shook her head. Nothing conclusive, Your Majesty. Velen Intelligence sent us a set of fingerprints to run through our database. There were no matches. They claimed the prints didn't belong to any Vezek citizen on file, but without our own presence up there, we have no way of verifying that. But no additional evidence has been found that points to the involvement of Suomina. No, they still haven't been either fully implicated or fully ruled out. Hey, Miss Werner, which resources are we able to bargain with? Good question, Your Majesty. Gold production has slowed since the latest regulations were implemented, but it's still an option. Although, if you follow through with your support of Morella and its crusade for full control of the Mephtium ITZ, one of our most lucrative sources may soon be off limits. The regulations have also dented our small arms industry, but we can offer that or rifles. I'm not sure giving Velen guns is a good idea. And despite our deal with the swords, we have a small wine surplus that we can sell or trade. We didn't drink it all in Kalos, it only felt like we did. Vina grimaced at the reminder while the other councillors chuckled. If we can manage to free up the natural gas in the Aureus field in time, that will be a tradable asset. But a country as rich in oil as Velen won't need much of it. They may flat out ask us to buy their goods instead of trade, but we should be careful with our budget and anyway, I'd rather not pay Velen what amounts to ransom money. Hey, Grand Wiseman Ignatius, what do you think of the religious affairs in Velen can have an impact on negotiation? It very well may, Your Majesty. Sal frowned pensively. Our neighbor has long followed the path of Dasnurity, and I do not fault him for it. But in the hands of the current regime, that religion has become a cudgel with which to persecute Velen's Golkondist minority. The Bloods, you mean? Is Bloodish Golkondism the same as that practiced in Durdia? There are a few divergences, mostly regarding the use of violence against an opponent who has not directly provoked you. Bloodish Golkondist scripture forbids this, though the definition of provoked is often stretched. The Durdians allow it when their supreme wiseman has deemed that it is for the greater good. No surprises there. Hey, Hugo, is there any word from the House of Delegates in this? Right? When I said... Okay, I just said Hugo, and my phone thought I said Google. That is amazing. They have met about it, Your Majesty. The majority consensus was that the timelines of the Zille handover should take a backseat to protecting Rizian interests. Conceding too much to Velen too quickly will earn you the ire of Baroness de Rava and her party. Who the fuck is this? A national coalition, so the fascists, I'm guessing. The opposition, meanwhile, is much more, well, not the fascists then, probably the conservative majority. Exactly. The opposition, meanwhile, is much more amenable to compromise, particularly those party members from Brennus. That makes sense. They've been missing a piece of their province for long enough already. With all due respect, Your Highness, the Sazons lost the right to call Zille theirs when the former Duke of Isa committed his acts of treachery. They cannot seriously expect that it will be reincorporated into Brennus as if nothing happened. And why not? We took Isa from them, how much more punishment does their house need to endure? Lucida looked askance at her. I do hope you're not letting emotions cloud your judgment, Your Highness. For what it's worth, I agree with the princess, and not only because a number of historic Escobel estates are located in Zille. What fault can we expect if we don't come to an agreement? Lorenzo looked down. I highly doubt that a full deal would be reached today, only the beginning of one. His Majesty's question stands. Do we have a contingency plan? Well, Duchess, if our negotiations fall through and international pressure is insufficient to force Velen back to the table, then the responsibility will fall on Zille itself. Rosita flashed him a skeptical look. Which means what exactly, Mr. Escobar? If a majority of Zille's citizens believe the territory should belong to Rizia, the Vezek government cannot simply ignore them, especially if we gather external support. They can and they will. No state peacefully gives power away. Uh, we have a majority. I thought opinion was divided. President Smolak's announcement has already put many undecided citizens into the pro-Rizian column, and we have avenues to influence them further. The Zilla branch of ATA has already begun coordinating a Rizian-led reunification initiative in the wake of the AN announcement. With enough pressure from both inside and outside Zilla, Velen will have to give the region back, or at the very least hold a referendum. Zilla doesn't need a referendum, Mr. Esquivel, it needs a resistance. It's cut off from the Vezek mainland, divert enough funding and weapons to the right groups, and we can make an overthrow happen without getting our hands dirty. We can, but at what cost? My dear Duchess, you and your family really must learn that bloodshed isn't the answer to everything. You know what will end in bloodshed? Telling our people in Zilla to rise against the government without giving them the means to defend themselves. Or, for that matter, sending a message that our all-powerful king is placing stock in the results of a people's vote. I mean, I don't like the idea of manipulating one, but I see your point, but violence should only be used as a last resort. Otherwise, we risk destroying the territory we're trying to gain. Of course, Your Majesty, but if negotiations fail, things could go south quickly. We should be prepared. I don't think we should fund insurgencies. It's probably better for us to act directly. I'm as briefed as I'm going to be. Time to go meet President Smolak. Very good, Your Majesty. He's expecting us in the downstairs diplomatic suite. Good luck, Father. I'm crossing my fingers for results. As am I. Don't forget there's always a backup plan. We exited the council chamber. Titus, Lorenzo, and I walked through the palace's winding corridors until we reached the first door diplomatic suite. First floor. We left Titus standing guard outside the door and walked in. President Smolak was in the sitting room, flipping through a copy of the Royal Herald. He stood up and bowed to each of us. Your Majesty, Mr. Esquivel, it's truly a pleasure to be here. President Smolak, I'm glad that you finally found the time to meet with me. Yes, I apologize that it's taken so long. Things are quite turbulent in my country, as you understand. He set down the newspaper he'd been reading. You wouldn't believe what they're saying about me in your paper, Your Majesty. Smolak's iron grip on Zilla, enforced by dictatorial command rather than any real respect for international law or the rights of the local population, should be seen as a threat to us all. Yes, it must be horrible to have the truth printed about you, Victor. I can't control what the Rizian press says about you no more than I can control what it says about me. Your Majesty, I have the suspicion that your media functions much in the same way as mine. Not a word is permitted that your government doesn't approve of. You see, you and I are not as different as you might like to believe. Sure, let's butter him up. That's true, Mr. President. Both of us only want what's best for our people. I'm sure we'll be able to come to an agreement with that in mind. Exactly, that's why I'm here today. I saw relief in Lorenzo's eyes. We're already beginning to find common ground. I'm optimistic for these negotiations. The meeting room should be ready by now. Shall we proceed? He led us into the next room over, where a set of blue upholstered armchairs were ranged around a circular table. The three of us had a seat. A palace aide came by with water and coffee. Now that you're here, Mr. Smolak, can you explain in greater detail why you decided to postpone the Zilla handover? Smolak took a sip of water. He slowly wiped his mustache. It's simple, Mr. Escobar. Zille is now home to several million citizens of Ezek origin. Under the terms of the treaty our predecessors signed, they were to have the right to stay and work in the region. But the Zilla attack made it clear that those terms would not be respected without the protection of my government. I fear further violence will come to those who stay. Uh, please tell me what can I do to reassure your citizens' safety? It's nothing personal, your Majesty, but your current military action towards Palais reveals your kingdom's willingness to put territorial concerns above the welfare of its own people. Fuck's sake. Asshole. I'm also worried about your continued partnership with Rumberg, of course. I cannot simply hand these people's lives over to the friend of my enemy. I understand we will have to make special efforts to integrate all Veziks who wish to stay. Lorento nodded. Rizia takes Velen's concerns very seriously, and we are ready to take all available measures to ensure the security of our people once the region is back in Rizia's hands. That is comforting to know, Mr. Escobar. President Smolak smiled just a little too widely. My ministers and I agree that before Zille is reintegrated into Rizia, a good faith effort must be made to strengthen the bonds between our countries. We've therefore drafted an addendum to the original treaty, a series of measures meant to renew our old friendship. I don't like where this is going. I agree that closer cultural and economic ties could benefit both of our nations. They would indeed, after all. How well can Rumberg look after you when you're so far away from each other? Lorenzo pulled a folder out of his briefcase and opened it on the table. Mr. President, we received a draft from your ministers, but the terms were extremely vague. You're asking for a trade deal, a bilateral migration agreement, and a counter-terrorism cooperation pact. Tell me more about this trade deal, President Smolak. Very gladly, Your Majesty. If there is one fact everyone knows about Velen, it's that we sell oil. Meanwhile, we are worried about the impact the loss of Zilla will have to our economy. We will need a way to stabilize our currency. We therefore propose a straightforward exchange for Vezek oil for Rizian gold, at what I am sure you'll agree is a very favorable rate. 4 barrels for every ounce, to be exact. That seems reasonable. Okay, apparently not. Apparently the oil is much... Yeah, okay, this is... What? This is supposed to be the 50s? Oil is much cheaper back then. Sure. An interesting offer then, the rate is indeed favorable. We do have other interested parties, but of course Rizia gets first priority. Your kingdom may be about to come into a large amount of natural gas. Either way, your counselors will tell you about the importance of diversifying one's energy sources. Uh, sure, you may be right. Access to oil alongside natural gas would grant us more flexibility, not to mention more options for trade with our neighbors. Both of you are correct. Oil has uses that natural gas does not, and vice versa. See, Your Majesty, your counselors are very wise. As for your gold, I know better than to question its quality, but I have concerns about the consistency of your supply. Our new regulations may have slowed production temporarily, but I assure you they will be good. They will be good for productivity in the long run. So you say time will tell. President Smolak, please rest assured that we will not promise you an amount of gold we are unable to deliver. However, we have other commodities that we can offer instead of, or in addition to gold. Would those be of interest? If the price is right, why not? I am a flexible man. With a grin, he held his arm up and bent his wrists nearly all the way backwards. Lorenzo smiled patiently. I should tell you that Velen has other commodities too, Mr. Escobar. For instance, we're seeking to expand the market for morphine and other pharmaceutical products, not to mention Mercopa's finest tobacco. Our timber industry is also unparalleled in Mercopa. Your nobles might take a particular interest in our wood carvings. Sure, the Queen Mother always spoke highly of Vezek tobacco. She's right, your mother. A puff of our Kisha and a sip of your wine. I can't think of a more delightful combination. I know shops in Isa's little Vloklovitz quarter that sell Kisha under the table. They can't restock it fast enough. You see, Velen is not only an oil country, just as Rizia is not only a gold one. There is plenty we can offer each other. Is the bilateral migration agreement what it sounds like? I believe so. We are asking for complete freedom of movement between Velen and Rizia. It is also our wish that Vezeks residing in this country enjoy the same rights as native-born Rizians. Okay. There's some things like voting and shit that you would want to restrict to citizens, but have you not been keeping abreast of my immigration policy, Mr. President? Any Vezek citizen has the right to become nationalized as a Rizian. He looked at me sternly. As a Rizian, do you wish for our own culture, language, and traditions to disappear? If it were highly regulated, the integration of Vezeks into the Rizian workforce could be more of a benefit than a drawback. Precisely, Mr. Escapel. Rizians can't hold a candle to my people's work ethic. With that said, Mr. Smolak, are you not worried about the potential loss of skilled workers as Vezeks seek higher compensation in Rizia? Of course I have thought about that, but the trade agreement I have already proposed will help level out the economic disparities between our nations. Okay, Velen does have a lot of untapped potential. With the right path of development, it could be restored to the glory days of the 1920s. We are a diamond in the rough, Your Majesty. Set us in gold, and we will shine. I'm interested in hearing more about this anti-terrorism pact. Ah, yes. Your Majesty, Mr. Esquivel, how much do you know about the Bloodish Freedom Front? Sure. That's the more neutral answer. They were founded in protest of Tarquin Sol's policies in soil, and they've been active around the border between your countries. He shook his head. That may have been how they started, but the threat they pose is not limited to that one small region. And they are not acting alone. Their so-called fight for peace is in reality a mass destabilization effort funded by the West. In fact, one of the BFF's biggest supporters is none other than your lovely sister-in-law. I have no knowledge of what the kingdom of I have no knowledge of what the kingdom of Rumburg does or doesn't do in Velen. Then perhaps you should ask Her Excellency to fill you in the next time you sit down for tea. President Smolak, I'm aware that the BFF has not gone completely inactive since the retirement of Tarquin Sol, and that they may in fact be gathering their strength. But you have not yet made it clear what you want from Rizia. Patience, Mr. Escobar. You may be aware that most Bloods are followers of the Ruhikist sect called Kolkundism. So I hear, and aren't they the largest Kolkundist community outside of Durdia? Precisely, and in fact, Yorga Asmal's country has been granting sanctuary even to the most notorious of bloodish criminals. My request is simple. All Vezek Bloods and Durdian citizens are to be turned away from the Rizian border. Fuck off. Uh, yeah, Mr. President, I can't ban people from my country based on their religion. Durdians are a nationality, not a religion. For fuck's sake. And Vazak Bloods are an ethnic group as distinctly marked in their identification documents. That may be so, Mr. Smolak, but the international community would see this as a religious ban. Were the ban limited to only those with bloodish identification documents, we would have a far easier time implementing it. Surely you understand. And I still wouldn't do it. What I understand is that bloodish refugees have a fast track of Durdian citizenship. By allowing Durdian passport holders into Rizia, you may as well be opening your doors to the BFF. These are my terms, you may take or leave them. Unless. Unless what? Well, Your Majesty, let's say the Republic of Velen decided to take a more proactive approach to the BFF problem. Go on. Loreto nervously adjusted his tie. If your kingdom promised to aid us in that, it would of course be far more valuable than any form of border control. Proactive? Problem? I do not like the sound of either of those. Indeed not, President Smolak. I hope that your so-called solution does not involve retaliatory violence. Nothing so vulgar, Mr. Escobar. Is our long-term goal to drive the insurgents out of their strongholds up in the north of our country? Once that happens, we suspect some will flee south towards Zille. And in that case, we would be most grateful if the Rizian Navy prevented them from reaching their destination. Ah, yes, stop the boats. Fucking asshole. Yes, our navy is currently preoccupied with Palais. I'm not asking you for your help today, only someday. But I'm also happy to discuss our other terms. Ronto took one last glance at this folder, then looked up at us both. I believe we've covered everything, gentlemen. Not everything. What about this 3-year timeline? Timeline is to ensure that your kingdom can be relied upon, Your Majesty. We are looking for a long-term partnership with Rizia. You cannot simply tear up this treaty as soon as you get what you want. So we are asking for a 3-year probationary period. If all is still well between Velen and Rizia, by the end of that time we will be able to return Zille with full confidence. Okay, when will it end? How can I be sure that 3 years won't turn into 10? Don't worry, Your Majesty, as long as the terms are met, the handover will proceed as planned. Lorenzo finished jotting something down on his notepad. Thank you for your explanations, Mr. Smolak. This has been very informative. Would you mind waiting in the sitting room while His Majesty and I decide on Rizia's half of the agreement? It would be my pleasure. Smolak exited the room backwards, bowing as he did so. Well, quite a lot to think about, Your Majesty. I have the draft documents right here, if you're ready. Uh, Perfect, let's get to work. Think of everyone in Zille, Your Majesty, we are doing this for them. He handed me the treaty amendment draft and I began going through it. Okay. Import. This doesn't give me more negotiating power. Okay, oil, tobacco. -1 budget per turn. Golden wine. It gets timber as well. Don't promise aid against the BFF. Do not implement ban. Bezek's same right to work. About if we don't import timber? Okay, you got better negotiating power. Yes. Reto noted each decision I made in the margin of the document. When we had finished going through everything, he sat back and raised an eyebrow. Very bold, Your Majesty. I hope Velen will accept it. He asked an aide to call Smolak back into the room. President Velen wiped Rosetta crumbs off his mustache as he entered. What a delicious tart your people have invented. Now imagine it with a crust made of our strudel pastry. But first things first, let's have a look at that treaty. Lorenzo handed him the annotated draft, and he flipped through it eagerly. As he reached the end, his eyes narrowed. I see. I was not aware that the King of Rizia took me for a simpleton. Let's try and behave like gentlemen, Mr. Smollett. Lashing out will not solve anything. Neither will making a mockery of my fine proposal. You are content to watching us suffer alone in our fight against the Bloodish Freedom Front. To me, your unwillingness to cooperate shows that you cannot be trusted to resume governments of Zille. Yes, I would advise you to reconsider, Mr. Smolak. I'll remind you that we are committed to getting Zilla back by any means necessary. All is not lost, Your Majesty. There is one further condition which my ministers advise me not to include in the agreement. If you do this for me in addition to meeting the conditions you already agreed on, I can envision allowing the Zilla handover to proceed. You have my attention. Go on. It's a very sensitive, Your Majesty. You see, like the Bloodish Freedom Front, your Suomin organization has many different heads. But there is one that stands out above all others, Ricardus Torres. Deal with him and we can restart his conversation. Ah, yes, my nephew. Oh. Oh, that's it? Oh. Oh, Victor, baby, why didn't you tell me sooner? I was already planning on getting rid of him. Come on, we're bros. I'm afraid I don't understand. Duke Torres has committed no crime. Smollett fixed us both with a hawk-like stare. Suspecting he was involved in the Zilla incident. Meanwhile, he has shown nothing but contempt for the Vesecs living under his jurisdiction, and a country that allows a man like this to remain in power is not a country where my people will be safe. Yeah, I'm not sharing my cousin's views, neither does the majority of Rizia. You have you have had every chance to stop him, Your Majesty. It's not enough simply to not support him, he must be stripped of his power. It is my wish that he be arrested and extradited to Velen. Okay, that's a step too far. Where he will learn the true meaning of justice. I'd like to get him out of the way as well, but we need to be strategic about it. Lorenzo looked askance at me. Mr. Smolak, I understand your concerns about Duke Torres, but to turn him over to your country would require a trial and a conviction, followed by lengthy legal proceedings. That would be your problem to solve, Mr. Esquivel, not mine. We need to investigate him first. That alone could take ages. Even if evidence against Duke Torres were revealed, we would need to proceed with extreme caution. Your Grand Vizier will try to block this with all his might. I must be leaving soon, King Ramus. Will you cooperate me with this request or not? Fine. Sure, I'll add Rico to my list of promises, but there had better be no demands after this one. Yeah, let's be a little shady. Smolak start at stared at me impetuously for a few seconds, then broke into a wide smile. Fantastic, Your Majesty. I knew you would come through in the end. We will leave your cousin out of the official treaty, of course. It'll just be between us. I wish I had time to celebrate, but Raklovitz awaits. The next time you visit us, we will smoke Kisha together. You'll discover what you're missing out on. Sure, I'll leave the smoking to my mother, but I look forward to our next meeting. Let's tell the Queen Mother to join us next time as well. Norento rose from his seat. An aide will show you out while we finish up in here, Mrs. Smolak. Thanks again for your time. Thank you, Mr. Escobar. And you, of course, King Ralmus. A safe trip back, Mr. President. I will. Velen is not so far away after all. We accompanied Smollett to the door of the suite. He bowed one last time as an aide ushered him down the hall towards the exit. Lorenzo and I looked at each other for a long couple of moments. We have quite a task before us, don't we? But I'm confident we'll rise to the challenge. Yeah, Bastard has us right where he wants us, but I see no other choice. Other than war. We made out fairly well considering the circumstances. Lorenzo gathered up the documents that were scattered across the table. Together we left the suite. I already wanted to get rid of Rico, so... That is going to be for next episode. Hey, General Lazaro has been dismissed from the episode. Dismissed from the discharged from the the hospital. For fuck's sake. Okay, what's on? Working rights extended to Vesex. Preliminary deal for Zille return. I don't like this. This is gonna go great. But as I was saying, thank you very much for watching. As always, I have been Pope. Please do remember to like, comment, and indeed subscribe. I will see you all next time.